Hi, I am Stephanie Priest. I am the owner and founder of Ignite Fitness and Kickboxing. We spend our days helping people get to the other side of their fitness and wellness journey. We work lifestyle and sustainability, so that way people can not only get to their goals, but they can absolutely maintain them. And we very much believe that mindset is a massive part of what it is that allows us to get to the other side of the journey. So today in this video, we are actually going to talk about hormones. This is going to be a multiple part series because women's hormones tend to be at the very top of the list. And some people will say hormones, schmormones, but I very much believe that understanding some of the hormones that impact your body is very, very, very vital, and really understanding how it is that it can impact you and can impact your weight gain and or weight loss is very, very, very instrumental as you move forward in whatever goals it is that you have. Make certain that if you enjoy this content, that you click the subscribe button, make certain that you smash that like button, and definitely leave some comments below. So that way we know that you guys are enjoying the content that we actually have out there. So this is a multi-part series, as I told you about. This particular series, we're going to actually talk about cortisol, what cortisol is, why cortisol is important, why do we have it, and really what's the purpose. So cortisol is the primary stress hormone that we have. So oftentimes, if you've worked with me, you've heard me say, oh my gosh, your cortisol levels are going to be through the roof, right? Cortisol actually increases glucose in the bloodstream, and what happens is your brain, it enhances the use of glucose in your brain, and it also increases the availability of substances that repair tissues. So cortisol is not a bad thing. It's just whenever you are in stressed out situations, it can lead to some things. Cortisol actually also utilizes carb functions, or it curbs functions that would be non-essential in a fight or flight situation. So what are the impacts potentially of cortisol? It can impact you from a fatigue perspective. It can make you be irritable, right? So how many of you guys have been like irritable? And it's a direct correlation of like your cortisol levels being through the roof. It can also have headache causes. It can be a cause of headache. Intestinal problems, anxiety, depression, weight gain, increased blood pressure. The list of cortisol issues can go on and on and on. Cool, Steph. So how is it that I deal with high levels of cortisol? Like, what is it I'm supposed to do? Well, first of all, understand that cortisol can be controlled from the perspective of really looking at your sugars. So one of the things that I always say early on with people that are that tend to fall in this category of having high sugars is really track the amount of sugar that you consume. So the American Heart Association says that Americans consume an average of 77 grams of sugar a day, which is astronomical. It's 3 times the recommended amount that we're supposed to have. We're supposed to roughly have 24 grams of sugar a day, which works itself out to about 100 calories. So I know you're like, I don't want to track it. That's crazy. Like, tracking's awful. I don't want to track. I hear you. Having high sugars, though, also leads to your inability to sleep. So there's lots of things that it actually impacts. So consider just taking a gander. If you're not a tracker, just take a gander at the processed stuff that you're consuming, because a lot of us consume processed things in America. Just take a look at it. And oftentimes you'll be absolutely amazed at the amount of sugar in the different foods that we actually take in. So really think about that. Track sugar, track 24 grams of sugar. That's about what you're supposed to have a day. If you're a female, around 100 calories of it. Males tend to be closer to that 150 gram range, just because their bodies are a little bit different. Okay. So I'm tracking my sugar and I'm noticing that I have a lot of sugar. And I'm starting to bring that down. Awesome. Cool. Definitely do that. So what do high levels of cortisol also do? Well, high levels of cortisol also result in low levels of melatonin. So they're like an inverse relationship. So melatonin is naturally in our body and it allows us the ability to sleep. So if you're struggling with sleeping, it could be because your cortisol levels are high. And your cortisol levels could be high because you have an increased amount of sugar that you're taking in from a day-to-day basis. And we all understand the importance of sleep, right? Sleep is the most important thing. It's how our body recovers. It's how our body rests. Okay, cool. So I get it. high levels of cortisol, high levels of sugar. I don't sleep. My body doesn't recover. Let me say this. It's really important to have balanced levels of blood glucose, right? Blood glucose is really, really, really important in our body, and we need to make certain that we stabilize that. So how is it that we don't have peaks and valleys in this? My goal as a coach is always to minimize these highs and lows for you. So I want to minimize the highs and lows. So how is it that we have a good level of blood glucose, right? How is it that we maintain that on a daily basis? Eat the rainbow, no processed foods, right? Or limited amounts of processed foods. Eat evenly throughout the day. So that way you have spaced meals. So that way your body is taking in and consuming on a consistent level, right? Make certain that your meals aren't more than like 4 hours apart. And also another tip is to exercise 30 minutes to an hour after your meals. Okay. So I'm exercising after my meals, about 30 minutes to an hour afterwards. I'm really starting to track my sugars, and I'm seeing that I was probably taking about 300 calories in daily in sugar content. Now I'm down to about 100, which is about 24 grams, which makes sense for the fact that I'm a female. My blood glucose is starting to stabilize because I'm actually eating the rainbow, things that aren't processed. I'm eating consistently with snacks in between my actual meals. Okay, yay. All of this should yield lower cortisol levels, which also means we have an increase in melatonin. And that also means that we should see a reduction in our anxiety. So we're sleeping better. We have a reduction in our anxiety because we're not like spiking, like we don't have these highs and lows, like these really highs and lows. So how is it that I continue to go down this path and make certain that I'm really focusing on this? Because cortisol as a hormone is really important to my body. And I want to make certain that I'm managing it, right? I want to make certain that I'm managing blood glucose. I want to make certain that it's stable. I want to make certain that I don't have sugar intake that's causing me not to sleep. So that way I'm recovering in an appropriate manner. No added sugars, right? We want to make certain that the food that we're taking in, and I won't say like, don't get a bar, don't do this, don't do that, because I eat Quest bars, right? I eat supplementation things. So it's not that I'm saying eliminate that completely. What I'm saying is, in the event that you have an option to have something that is that has added sugar or that has natural sugars, you should always default to that no added sugar, like natural sugar item, right? Eating from the rainbow. The earth has given us everything it is that we need. If it can be on the shelf for more than 2 weeks, you don't want to eat that, right? Because it's processed, it's prepackaged. You can also really think about having nuts and dried fruit. Those are really great options if you can't have access to regular, natural fruit available to you. It still has sugar, right? Those nuts and all that stuff. But like, think about it from the perspective of it's healthy sugars. You've got healthy fats in those nuts. And those are the things I believe that we struggle with because we're like, well, but. So this is the thing. When you have healthy fats, right, your body actually stabilizes the glucose levels as well. So your body doesn't use sugar as the energy source and drive that energy source down. It uses the fat, that healthy fat, as the energy source, not the sugar. And we do need sugar in our body. I'm not saying that we don't need sugar. I'm saying that we need to be cognizant and we need to be aware of the sugar that we actually put into our body. Make certain it's not sugar added. Make certain that it's something that's natural as opposed to. Make certain that your fats are healthy fats. So that way you stabilize your glucose levels and you're using the energy that you need to use, which would be the fat as opposed to the sugar, right? I hope that makes sense. The other thing is in the mornings, really consider whenever you start out in the morning, utilizing limited sugars in the morning, right? So that way you minimize the highs and the lows. Remember, I said my job as a coach is to take this high low and to minimize your high lows. And we can minimize those by starting in the beginning of the day by making certain that you don't have huge sugar like hits with creamers, all those like sweet creamers and stuff that we use. Really looking at those in the morning and understanding where your sugars are coming from. I always recommend this to everyone. If you have not done it and you are not a tracker, I know lots of people are like, tracking. So if you're not a tracker, I totally get it. But really take a consideration of what it is that you're actually taking into your body. Consider tracking for 2 weeks. So that way you can understand the types of food that you consume. Once you understand what your habits are, that's how you can go in and you can actually almost reverse engineer those habits into healthier habits. But if you don't understand what it is that you're currently consuming, it's really difficult to go backwards and to, back into that. So really try to have an understanding of what it is that you're consuming. Do you tend to take in sugars during the morning? Do you actually take in more than, 24 grams on a daily basis? Do you take in that? Those are going to be the things that help you chart the course to where it is that you actually want to do. We want to focus on no highs and lows, right? Like that's really, really important. We want to have those highs and lows as minimized as we possibly can across the way. Also, another thing, and I had mentioned this earlier about making certain that you're eating consistently throughout the day, eat until you're satiated. So what does that mean? Eat until I'm satiated. So you have to be cognizant. And that means that you need to take your phone and you need to put your phone down. Because if you're not cognizantly consuming, if you're not eating and you're not aware of what it is that you're eating and you're not thinking about what it is that you're eating and you're not in that moment while you're eating, how many times have you eaten something and you're like, holy crap, I didn't even realize that I ate all of that? I totally have. You have to be aware of what it is that you're eating, because inevitably what happens is when we're not cognizant of what it is that we're consuming, we eat all of the things and then we end up having to unbutton our pants, right? So I really want you to be cognizantly aware of what it is that you're consuming. Practice don't stuff, don't starve. Eat until you're comfortable, right? And this is a really great one. At the end of your meal, any of them, ask yourself this question: would I be able to go work out after I ate this? And if the answer is yes, then you've eaten the correct amount, because you've fueled your body to the point that you absolutely have enough, but you haven't overeaten. If you would go and throw up wherever it is that you work out, you've probably overeaten, right? So those are the things that I want you to think about. When you eat until you're satiated and when you're eating consistently throughout the day, that doesn't create these massive spikes in our blood glucose levels. That creates consistency. And as my job as your coach, my goal is to create consistency. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for tuning in. Click that subscribe button and we'll talk to you soon.